You've all seen it burning out of tall smokestacks, and it's burned around the world. It's waste. That is just burning off valuable commodity. That gas can be sold. We shared with the President of Mexico the other day that if they stop flaring, it will save them $2 billion a year in their budget. So if all the gas that is flared were collected, guess what? It would be the equivalent of the third largest gas producer in the world. So at a time of climate crisis and energy crisis, this action of dealing with methane is a no-brainer. But some people obviously have chosen otherwise. We have to keep pushing. President Biden launched our updated methane action plan with over $20 billion in investments to cut methane at home in the United States. We are serious about this. And I'm very proud that today we unveil a new joint declaration by EU, Japan, Canada, Norway, Singapore, and the UK, bringing together energy importers and exporters who are committed to reduce emissions from oil, gas, and coal. So with this declaration, we have united countries that account for over 1/3 of global gas production and over 1/2 of global gas import volumes, which ensures that we will be able to reduce warming impact alongside accelerating our clean energy transition. So our panelists have a lot more to share with you, and we're going to try to roll through this pretty expeditiously.
Thank you so much, Secretary Kerry. We're going to jump right into the panel. I'm going to introduce them in the order in which they will speak. We have Micronesia's Secretary of the Department of Environment, Climate Change and Emergency Management, Andrew Yattelman. Welcome. We have Canada's Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Stéphane Guilbeault. The Algerian Senior Legal Officer in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, Mohamed Jafar Sharif. Welcome. And the Permanent Secretary for the Nigerian Federal Ministry for Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Gabriel Aduda. May I please ask Andrew Yattelman to start with remarks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Secretary Kerry. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends from around the world. The Federated States of Micronesia is a country in the Pacific made up of 607 islands. Many of those islands, like the outlying island where I was born, barely rise above the ocean waves. We have inhabited our islands over 4,000 years, but as you all know, our survival is greatly threatened because of climate change. Not only the rising sea, but deadly heat and storms are putting our existence at risk. The world urgently needs solutions that reduce the warming temperatures that threaten my country's survival and the survival of all of the Pacific Islands and all of the vulnerable people of the world. There is a riptide of uncertainty just beyond 1.5 degrees that will pull the world forcefully and relentlessly into a turbulent sea of dangerous feedbacks and tipping points that are not only a danger to small islands, but a danger to us all. Science tells us that decarbonization alone is not enough to slow warming. It is critical in the long term, but to slow warming, we must cut the short-lived pollutants now. Reducing methane emissions is a lifeboat for us all. Nearly half of current net global warming comes from methane emissions. So cutting these emissions is critically needed to avoiding the dangers of surpassing 1.5 degrees Celsius. Last year, the Federated States of Micronesia joined the Global Methane Pledge. And then we immediately moved to include methane in our revised NDC, which we launched this past Monday, pledging to reduce our methane emissions 65% by 2040. 2 months ago, we received support to prepare a national methane plan. And at this COP, we learned the Global Methane Hub intends to support islands with special fund to implement methane projects in the energy, waste, and agriculture sectors, particularly projects to capture methane for electricity generation and divert organics from landfills. These projects have potential health, energy, and economic benefits that also support our development goals. We and our Pacific neighbors, as well as our other island states, are doing our part, but our contribution is next to nothing. In order to protect our survival, we need the major methane-emitting countries to do more too. We give a high five to the United States for their methane reduction announcement. And we look forward to China's national plan on methane to serve as a model for the developing world. Fast actions from the large emitters are key to our survival. We invite all G20 countries to rise to this challenge. In fact, we hope all countries will join this movement to reduce methane and keep 1.5 alive. The latest reports say the 1.5 degree Celsius goal may be dead, but we refuse to give up because the existence of our people and our lands depend on our will to keep fighting. It is time to redouble our efforts to not just promise, but take massive action to cut methane, launching the lifeboats worldwide to ensure the survival of all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Secretary Yetilman. Turning now to Minister Guibo.
Thank you very much. Thank you, John, and thanks to the United States for organizing this panel. Colleagues, there are many, many pathways to what we are trying to do, but there's only one goal, and that goal is to keep 1.5 degrees Celsius alive. And one thing is clear, the fastest and least costly way of doing this is methane. Earlier this week, I was talking to Fethi Barol, who made this very interesting comparison. He said that if the world meets a 30% methane reduction by 2030, it would be the equivalent of electrifying all of the transportation sector around the world. We can do this, and we can do this by 2030. But unfortunately, we are seeing many regions of the world where methane emissions are still rising, which is why initiatives like the Joint Declaration on Fossil Energy Emissions to address oil and gas methane emissions from countries like mine is so important, and why Canada was a very happy and enthusiastic signatory to this. And it's kind of a big deal for us. I mean, we are the 4th largest producer of oil and gas, so we have a big responsibility, but it's also a big challenge. There are a number of other advantages to doing this. It will obviously improve our environment. It will help to improve air quality. It will help to reduce flaring, to reduce venting, and to reduce other environmental impact of methane. And in a world of often intractable, complex, complicated problems, this one is not. Canada is also committed to reduce our methane emission from the oil and gas sector by 75% by 2030, which is one of the most ambitious goals of any countries in the world, let alone a large oil and gas producing country like ours. So very anxious to continue doing this work with our partners in the north and in the south. And thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Minister. Thank you very much. Turning now to Mr. Jafar Sharif, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Kerry. I'd like to thank you for providing the opportunity to present and share my country's effort relating to accelerate of the mitigation ambition while enhancing energy security. Like other countries in the MENA region, Algeria suffers from the negative impact of climate change, and this is likely to worsen according to the various reports of the IPCC. Our country has addressed challenges caused by drought, seasonal floods, heat waves, wildfire, water scarcity, biodiversity loss, and desertification, which impact food security and local livelihoods. Algeria has also to address several problems challenging its sustainable development in adaptation capacity to adverse effects of climate change and economic diversification. At the same time, Algeria is striving for a steady socio-economic development following sustainable development principles. Despite these challenges, Algeria is committed to contributing to the global effort to achieve the objective of the Paris Agreement in light of principle of global climate framework and its national capacity. Due to the time constraint, I will focus my intervention on actions and measures undertaken and directly related to this issue we are discussing in this panel. The Algerian government adopted a strategy approach concerning the energy sector based on energy sobriety, energy efficiency, and the large deployment of renewables. This aims to reduce drastically energy consumption and, by the way, ensure energy saving and GHG emission cut. But in the same vein, the government is strongly committed to guaranteeing the Algerian population a reliable, modern, clean, and economical energy supply. When it's come to ambition of climate action, several actions are undertaken in the oil and gas sector. For example, even though our energy mix is based on natural gas. In this regard, I'd like to highlight the following elements. The adoption of implementation of an ambitious program for the development and deployment of renewable energy and energy efficiency with, as you know, with more than 3,000 hours of sunshine per year. We intend to use this potential for our economy and industrial development and move toward carbon neutrality. The prohibition since 2005 of gas flaring in upstream activity, which has been extended by the latest Algerian hydrocarbon law issued in 2019 to gas venting and to pipeline transport activity and downstream activity.
Thank you.
This has led to Algeria being among the countries which have succeeded in significantly lower their emission in 2021. The promotion of the use of cleaner fuel, including LPGs, the reduction of methane emission through the implementation of leak detection and repair system according to international standards applicable in oil and gas industry, the implementation of a national roadmap for developing of the hydrogen sector and currently being endorsed. Ladies and gentlemen, Algeria is doing its...
Yeah, can you put your microphone up closer, please?
I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, Algeria is doing its part to ensure the development of virtuous energy model based mainly on natural gas. This would ensure the just, fair, and equitable transition of carbon neutral economy pathway while ensuring the requirement of sustainable development and poverty eradication. We, however, firmly believe that keeping 1.5 objective alive calls also to keep every commitment on principle of the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement alive. Ambition in climate action can't be dissociated from providing ambition means as well as financial and technical support in manner to lead to the accelerating of the transition. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. All right, bring us home, Ambassador Aduda. Thank you.
Secretary Kerry, moderator, ladies and gentlemen. In line with Nigeria's commitment to net zero emissions by 2060, we are happy to announce that Nigeria has signed and is preparing to launch the guidelines for the management of fugitive emissions and greenhouse gases. The greenhouse gases emissions in the upstream oil and gas sector, which details requirements and standards for the mitigation and abatement of fugitive methane emissions from oil and gas operations. The provisions of these guidelines shall be applicable to new and existing facilities within the upstream Nigerian oil and gas industry. It also complements the provisions of the Gas Flare Prevention of Waste and Pollution Regulations 2018 and its attendant provisions. The guidelines will further support the nation's drive for sustainable oil and gas operations in the following ways: reduction of the environmental and social impact caused by gas flaring and emissions of methane from equipment leaks. 2, standards for inspection and maintenance, leak detection and repair, and flare efficiency. 3, establishment of a measurement, reporting, and verification system for methane and other greenhouse gases emissions from operations. Also create an enabling environment that will allow for in-country application of lead detection and technology transfer, integration of greenhouse gas management plan and net zero considerations in field development plans and facility engineering. Also, we have operationalization of full compliance with methane abatement measures provided in the guidelines, which will result in attainment of the oil and gas nationally determined contribution of fugitive emissions reduction to 60% by 2031 and 95% by 2050 as stipulated in the net emissions plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Turning it now to Secretary Kerry for final remarks. Thank you, sir.
Will you all join me in expression of our gratitude to Lauren Lovelace, who has handled this tonight. We appreciate it. And my thanks to everybody. I have famously given out what's called the Hard Ass Award for people who sit for a long time and listen. And you're all terrific to be here, terrific to have listened to this last panel. And I'll tell you why. 4 examples of countries that have decided to do what is necessary to get this job done. And each example has its own way of approaching a reduction in methane. But methane is brutal. And I'll tell you, the challenge of methane is compounded because the permafrost, which is now thawing in the north, you took at a place like Russia, 60+% of Russia was made up of frozen ground, but it's no longer completely frozen. And as the permafrost thaws, methane is released that's been contained for 40,000 years more. So we have a huge challenge. There are places you can go where in the ocean it just bubbles up, and if you lit it with a match, it will light on fire. So methane is our challenge. We can reduce it. It's the simplest thing. It's plumbing. You plug leaks and you prevent it from escaping, and you don't burn it out in the open, and you don't vent it. So simple, straightforward, 4 countries tackling it, a major new agreement among nations with a declaration to begin to push this more. 140 nations who have decided to be part of the methane pledge. I'm not sure what holds the others back, but here we are. The truth is that the fact is that if we got some of those other nations, we universally do this. If we achieve our goal of reducing methane by 30% by 2030, and mind you, that's not every country 30%. That's whatever you can do at home, whatever you do in your nation, all added to the global effort. Hopefully we get 30% reduction by 2030. You know why that's important? That reduction is the equivalent of every automobile in the world, every truck in the world, every airplane in the world, every ship in the world, all going to zero emissions by 2030. So here we are, almost at the end of 2022, 2023 begins, 7 years to the magic date of 2030. We have our work cut out, but we can do this. If we hit the 2030 target, we can go on to do what we need to do to hit net zero 2050. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you, each of these countries. Let's get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you all.